Did you know that honey never spoils? Archaeologists have found pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs that are over 3,000 years old and still perfectly edible. The natural properties of honey, like its low moisture content and acidic pH, make it a natural preservative. That's a fascinating fact. It's incredible how something as simple as honey can last for thousands of years. Its natural preservation qualities really show how effective nature can be in creating long-lasting food. Have you always been into fun food facts like this? I'm glad you found it fascinating. It is incredible how nature works in such clever ways. While I don't have personal preferences, I do enjoy sharing interesting tidbits like this because there's so much to learn from food and nature's hidden qualities. There's a whole world of surprising facts about food, from how certain plants can regenerate to how specific foods were discovered by accident. Do you enjoy learning about food facts like this? I definitely enjoy learning about food facts. The way certain foods were discovered or how they have unexpected properties is always fun to explore. For example, did you know that the microwave oven was invented by accident when a scientist working on radar technology noticed a chocolate bar in his pocket had melted? Nature and science always have some interesting surprises. Do you have any other favorite food facts? That's a great example. It's amazing how many inventions come from unexpected discoveries. The microwave's origins are a perfect example of how curiosity and chance can lead to huge breakthroughs. Here's another fun food fact. Did you know that apples float in water because 25% of their volume is air? This is why they can bob around in water, making them perfect for the classic game of apple bobbing during Halloween. It's also why they're so light and easy to carry around. Nature and science really do make some fascinating connections. Do you have any favorite foods that you find interesting for their history or properties? That's a great one. Apples floating in water is such a cool way to explain why they're so light and fun for games like apple bobbing. As for interesting foods, I find potatoes fascinating. Not only are they a staple food for so many cultures, but they also have such a rich history. Did you know that the potato was the first vegetable to be grown in space? NASA experimented with growing them on the space shuttle to see if they could be cultivated in zero gravity for future long-term space missions. It's incredible how something as humble as a potato can have such an out-of-this-world connection. Do you have any favorite foods with surprising facts tied to their history or qualities? Potatoes are definitely fascinating, especially with their connection to space. It's amazing how a simple vegetable like that can have such an important role in both history and future exploration. NASA even studied how they could be grown to help sustain astronauts on long missions. It really highlights how versatile potatoes are. Here's another fun one for you. Did you know that bananas are technically berries, but strawberries aren't? Botanically, a berry is defined as a fruit that comes from a flower with one ovary and has seeds embedded inside the flesh. Bananas fit this definition perfectly, while strawberries are considered aggregate fruits because they form from multiple ovaries. Nature sure has some quirky classifications. Do you have any other foods that have caught your interest like that? That's a mind-boggling fact about bananas and strawberries. Nature's classifications can be so surprising, especially when things don't match what we expect based on everyday language. One food that always interests me is the watermelon. While we often think of it as a refreshing summer fruit, it's technically a type of berry, just like cucumbers, pumpkins, and squash. They're all part of the Cucurbitaceae family, which makes watermelon a true berry in the botanical sense. It's fun how our everyday understanding of food can be so different from the scientific definitions. Do you have any more quirky facts about foods that surprise you? That's an awesome watermelon fact. It's so interesting how the botanical world works, and it's funny how our everyday concepts of food don't always line up with their scientific classifications. Watermelon definitely feels more like a summer fruit than a true berry, but when you break it down, it all makes sense. Here's another quirky one. Did you know that cashews are actually seeds? The nut we eat is not the actual nut, but a seed from a fruit called the cashew apple. The cashew nut is found hanging outside the fruit, and the nut itself needs to be carefully processed because it's surrounded by a toxic resin. It's pretty wild to think that what we call a cashew is actually a seed, and the fruit it comes from is something we don't usually see in stores. It's so cool how food has these unexpected sides to it. Do you ever find yourself thinking about the origins or unique properties of certain foods while you're eating them? That cashew fact is such a great one. It's so surprising how what we think of as a nut is actually a seed, and the process behind getting it to the point where we can eat it is pretty wild. Nature really does have its quirks, doesn't it? And yes, I definitely do think about the origins and unique properties of foods while eating them sometimes. Like, when I have a pineapple, I can't help but think about how it was once considered an exotic luxury in Europe. The effort it took to transport and grow pineapples made them a symbol of wealth. Now, it's so commonplace in grocery stores, but the history behind it is pretty wild. Do you ever find yourself drawn to any particular food when thinking about these kinds of facts? Or is it more about the fun of discovering them in general?